bounce like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Now, you can live in Texas and not have a good red meat blend. Texas Cowboy Dust is designed for steak and other red meats. It's out to be my most popular spice blend, made with onions, peppers, ground mushrooms, pink salt, and other spices. Texas Cowboy Dust also goes great with chicken, pork, vegetables, and adds a restaurant-quality sheen to gravies and sauces.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at MyMajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
Join the BCSN Sports Rap Crew in a conversation with ESPY Award nominee Thomas Snacks Lee this Wednesday, June 17th at noon Eastern, right here on the Jericho Broadcast Network's family of podcasts on Facebook, YouTube, and the MyJBN/MyBCSN app.
The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character. Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music.
For my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people and this classic Bible teaching say, make this for my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people and this classic Bible teaching, hey, 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 motivation.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Now, you can live in Texas and not have a good red meat blend. Texas Cowboy Dust is designed for steak and other red meats. It's out to be my most popular spice blend, made with onions, peppers, ground mushrooms, pink salt, and other spices. Texas Cowboy Dust also goes great with chicken, pork, vegetables, and adds a restaurant-quality sheen to gravies and sauces.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, you gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay. Tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. Bill, Mike and Charles, and I'm time.
Welcome to episode 73 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, i.e. all things HBCU sports. For institutions large and small, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to help HBCUs and alumni to understand the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, along with my co-hosts, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KSOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Fame Ralph Cooper in beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. And as we see, Professor Charles Bishop, as they say, as you're doing and studying, Professor Mike Washington in a lot of ways as well. I see you have your Texas Southern University cap on there. How's it going?
It's going well, Dr. Caville. You know, I got quite a few inbox, quite a few text messages to show off my Texas Southern spirit. So here we go. Show a little Texas Southern love today.
At least you can still say "Go Tigers."
Exactly.
No doubt. How you doing, Mike?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. I'm just good. Just good to hear about my good friend and everything else, Mr. Ralph Cooper. So I'm supporting the TSU love as well. My shirt is not clean. It's the only TSU shirt I have, and it just wasn't clean, so I couldn't pull it out today.
No problem. As we get started, we'll have our guests coming in about 6:15. The first group, Corey Staples, with their new show and her guests. We'll bring them in about 6:15. We're going to do the first part where we do a little news update, and we'll get in a nice little interview and get an update and see where they're going there. So with that, let's start with Charles. As we said, we have the Hall of Famer, Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper, that was announced last week. So I want to get your thoughts on that. And then we'll go to Mike and give you a chance to give your thoughts in regards to Ralph Cooper and his accomplishments.
Well, you know, Dr. Caville, I can say it's only nothing short of just a blessing to literally watch and learn and study at the feet of Ralph Cooper, Texas radio legend, and for us to get an opportunity week to week to come into the studio and watch him do his work. I mean, it is a awesome experience to watch Ralph literally with an open newspaper just wax poetic for hours. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. But, you know, I want to share something personal for me in terms of when I first started listening to his show. One of the things that I always miss, my father passed away in 2000. And I got an opportunity, that was a part of me that was missing, got an opportunity to listen to Ralph. And it was, for a lot of ways, it was reconnecting back with how I learned HBCU athletics, how I learned the SWAC, how I learned boxing, baseball. Just to hear that perspective coming from Ralph, it's just knowledgeable in all sports. I mean, he has forgotten more SWAC history than I'll probably ever know. And I want to say congratulations to Ralph. It couldn't go to a more deserving individual.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Well said, Charles. I echo all your comments. Mike, what are your thoughts?
History. Where do I start? As you know, I come from a family that used to sit around the table at Thanksgiving or any other holiday and talk about the old days of the SWAC and the SWAC relays, and they talk about old sports, you know, and you couldn't go through one of those conversations without hearing Ralph Cooper's name. When I was very young, Ralph Cooper was one of the first African American journalists who would sit at it was then kind of sports after the news show. And it would be kind of a three-man set. And he could talk to any sport. And this was, I'm talking in the 80s, mid to late 80s. I was a young kid, but I would stay up to watch him. And I remember watching those shows and remember what a wealth of knowledge he was. And to go through all the people that he's interviewed, Sugar Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, I mean, they're really
Muhammad Ali.
Exactly. You could just sit in the presence of this man and just learn and absorb information, and he's always willing to give it to you. So even, you know, when I started, you know, working this, he was, you know, a wealth of knowledge, and I just kind of like just sitting there and absorbing all of the information, the history that this man has, because you know, if you're not from the southeast, the southwest, I mean, you don't know Ralph Cooper, there's something wrong. His name transcends so much.
Well said, Mike, and I echo those as well. My comments will come in regards a little bit. I was a professor and thought I knew a lot about sports, be honest with you. And obviously a lot of that was in regards to the business side, and Ralph knows that as well, but his ability to cover it and the fact that he gave me opportunity, which means now I have an opportunity to bring you all on board in regards to this show, and all the credit goes to him. And it's not like he's done that just for us. He's done that for many people over the years in regards, really, in a lot of ways, to young people. He's always had a heart to make sure that young people had an opportunity in a lot of ways. Excuse me, there's flyers in here a little bit. Had a way to give them the opportunity to take the next steps, to do the things that he did over the years, and literally being a beacon for seeing the world change in a lot of ways. Many people say we still have ways to go, but the fact that he started when he was literally in many of those press boxes, the only African-American, black, whichever you prefer, in those spaces, and do such a tremendous job just is worth paying homage to. And so I wanted to take this time as we open up this show to honor Ralph Cooper in regards to what he's done in radio, but really outside of that. And so it's good to be able to give people their roses before their time comes. And so with that, I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Ralph Cooper, our very own, as he gets it done in so many ways. With that, going back to you, Charles, any other news that you wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, big news, and especially here for us in the state of Texas. The State Fair of Texas was canceled, but for now, the Grambling versus Prairie View game is still on. So that's one of the big news coming out of the state of Texas today in terms of the State Fair, which is always a huge crowd pleaser here in the state of Texas, Big Tex and everything, and the State Fair Classic being involved around the game, Red River rivalry as well. But as of now, Grambling versus Prairie View will still go on as scheduled.
Now that's big news, and that one was really released earlier today. The update that I have at this point is that they're still talking about playing the game, Grambling and Prairie View. This was for the State Fair Classic. Now it's going to be hard to imagine that they could play the game at the State Fair with this going on, but it's a conference game. Many people may not realize between Prairie View and Grambling. So with that, if the SWAC has a season and these two institutions decide to play, they will still play. The promoter owns the rights to the game, so it'll be interesting to see where does he decide to have the game. Does he continue to have it in Dallas? Does he continue to have it at the Cotton Bowl? Or will this come back to whoever's the home team at this point this year? It'll be interesting to kind of follow and see what is the nexus in regards to what's going on there. With that, Mike, what else do you have in regards to news of the day?
Well, and then there were two more. To the latest list of HBCU fall season cancellations, the latest being Langston University announced Friday that it's canceling fall sports. And then you can also add Wiley College to that list. So that's a growing list. Both universities met with the respective bodies. They didn't take the decision lightly, but I think, as we said a couple of weeks ago when we started seeing early cancellations, that this thing will continue, and these two certainly won't be the last. So,
oh man, that's right. That did just happen. This stuff is changing so fast.
Yeah.
And we talked about cancellations last weekend with Morehouse. Until you brought it up, I almost forgot that was actually this week's news and not last week's news in a lot of ways in regards to the timing of the show. So I'm glad you brought that to the table because we continue to see this take place. Obviously, in terms of HBCU, this is the third private school, second one in Texas. But this is the first time that we heard a public institution at the HBCU level that announced in terms of Langston that they were counseling the athletic season, including the sport of football. Amazing in terms of what is taking place. This is a chance for me to tell everybody to continue to be safe, particularly those that are right here in our backyard in Texas and Houston. You've heard the reports. Hopefully people will continue to take this extremely serious because that is exactly what it is. with that, Charles, do you have any additional news that you wanted to bring to the table?
Sure, and as we cover all things with the HBCU diaspora, we talk about the bands, and this comes to us from the band world from HBCU Game Day by our guest coming on a little bit later. But Southern's Human Jukebox, they're done with the Knicks parade after the All Lives Matter post. Southern University's marching band, the Human Jukebox, will no longer be leading the way for the Mystic Crew of Knicks. The Mystic Crew of Knicks is an all-female carnival crew organization based in New Orleans, which has been hosting the largest Mardi Gras parade since 2012. And this is a statement from SU's Director of Bands, Kendrick Taylor. For several years, Human Jukebox, which includes our fabulous dancing dolls, has led the way for the Mystic Crew of Knicks in New Orleans. That practice has now come to an end. We will not participate in an organization whose leader proclaimed all lives matter during a time of global unrest in response to the fatalities of Black Americans at the hands of law enforcement, as well as those who carry out hate crimes. So big news coming from the band world. Of course, you know, Mardi Gras, huge in the state of Louisiana, in the South. So that's a big news coming from the Southern University Human Jukebox band.
Yes, noteworthy news in regards to that. And as we talk about around this space, we tell you about the HBCU sports, HBCU athletic aesthetics, which include the marching sport that you hear many people talk about and how ingrained it is in terms of the HBCU sports culture. So the fact that you touched on that is extremely important in how broad perspective and that Southern University is in regards to their commitment in terms of what we're taking place. Many people say there are two pandemics taking place right now. That is the COVID-19 pandemic and the racism pandemic. So that's another example of people moving forward with Black Lives Matter and juxtaposing it in those that feel the need to say all lives matter outside of the framework of people trying to paint this particular picture. With that, Mike, another news that you want to bring to the table?
Yeah, uh-oh. Yeah.
Medical emergency.
No, that's the Amber Alert. That's the Amber Alert.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's serious. Hopefully everything's all right. But Mike, what other news do you have going on?
So I know we'll get into a little bit later, but you know the recent changes with Howard is big news. I'd like to start and just highlight on how big that is. You know, the recent announcement that Howard University Sports had joined the Northeast Conference as associate members. That is tremendous. Now this is mostly spring sports, so this impacts the men's soccer and women's lacrosse. Will play in the Sun Belt and ASUN respectively, at least initially, and then you'll have men's and women's soccer, men's swimming and diving for the winter. Then you have women's lacrosse, and then you have golf, all joining the Northeast Atlantic Conference for the upcoming 2020 to 2021 season. So this is a move that allows them to play NCAA Division I level golf, swimming. It gives the NEC or Northeast Conference, a 10 or 11 school conference in several sports. So it's an interesting move. It comes on the heels of a lot of movement across the HBCU landscape. So wondering, what's the next strategic, if you're thinking chess, what's the next strategic move in the overall HBCU landscape? But to have 6 teams, mostly rooted in the spring, decide to move to another conference, you had to wonder how long this would be in the works, how long this has been in the works and been negotiating as well. So.
Yes, one thing as we prepare to bring on our guests, Corey Staples and Dominique Whitehurst, is they'll be joining us shortly for as they talk about their new show, Air It Out, as a partner of HBCU Game Day. Look forward to that interview, and we'll come right to that once they join us pretty much shortly. One context I did want to add to that, Mike, in regard to Howard, because a lot of people are concerned in regards to what does this mean for the bigger picture. And the deadline date of July 1st has come and passed. And so a lot of people had rumor with Delaware State going to Northeast Conference. Some people had Howard talking about whether they were going to the Patriot League. Some people even snuck out to the Ivy League, although I didn't think that was real at all. But the fact that this should be looked at a little differently. These are sports that, for the most part, or all the sports, I should say, not even for the most part, these were sports that the MEAC did not have in part of their ledger.
Right.
And when you look at HBCU sports, when you talk about men's and swimming, also an added note is the fact that only North Carolina A&T and FAMU had swimming along with Howard over the last 10 years, and both of those school institutions dropped those sports. So Howard happens to be the only HBCU institution with a men's and swimming. So when you go into this, you want to give your programs opportunity to go to NCAA tournaments. And the only way you can do that is an automatic bid or at large bid. And it's always nice to be able to have the automatic bid in your pocket. And that's where conference affiliation comes from. So that's a note. And then when you talk about women's soccer, while in the SWAC sponsors soccer for all sports, that's not the case for the MEAC. Only South Carolina State, Delaware State, and Howard have women's soccer. So that's not a sport in that term. And we see Corey Staples coming in. Looks like Dominique Whitehurst will be right with you as Dominique pipes in, and we'll have both of y'all and be ready to go. Excited about what's coming up next.
The other piece I'll say as you talk about the conference is the travel. That's a cost. If they move to the NAC, obviously the soccer team is not having to travel to the SWAC.
Yeah, but the SWAC actually removed them from the conference this off season. A lot of that news hadn't necessarily came out yet, so they didn't have conference affiliation because the SWAC decided because of the distance travel. It was actually the SWAC that decided to sever ties and take away their bid, if you would, in terms of conference affiliation there. So that's one reason that I wanted to kind of put that on the table and clear that up a little bit, that this was more about them having conference affiliation along with women's lacrosse. With that, without further ado, we have, as you know, Corey Staples and Dominique Whitehurst in terms of their new show. As they bring it to the table, let's bring them in appropriately. Air it out. Ladies, how you doing?
Doing really well. Thank you for having us.
Hi.
It is doing well. It is our pleasure. Pleasure. With that, let's go ahead and get into these interviews where we'll get a chance to learn a little more about yourselves. Let's start with you, Corey, in regards to this question. And then, Dominique, if you would jump right in after that. Tell us about yourselves.
So I got my bachelor's from the University of Florida, where I was on the women's basketball team there, and I got my bachelor's in telecommunications news. And after that, I transferred and did my last year of eligibility for the FAMU women's basketball team, and I am now obtaining my master's in sport management there. And while I was at FAMU, I was able to be the sideline reporter for the FAMU football team for the ESPN3 segment with Rattler Production, so I was able to kind of dive more into my passion of broadcasting, and it led me here, and I had some close ties with FAMU, some people at FAMU, so it really just was able to catapult me, and now I have this opportunity with HBCU Game Day, and it's very exciting, and it's kind of just helping me even expand much more into that broadcasting realm that I'd like to get into, specifically sports. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me, a Gator turned Rattler.
I like it, especially when you talk about the sport management program. I like that. With that, Dominique Whitehurst, if you would, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into Air It Out. How did that come in? And we'll let Charles and Mike jump in and ask some further follow-up questions as well. But go ahead, Dominique.
Sure. Well, as you said, my name is Dominique Whitehurst. I received my undergrad from the University of South Florida down in Tampa, where I majored in mass communications and broadcasting. And of course, I had this big dream of being the next Stuart Scott and the next Maria Taylor. But then I started getting into the production, and I was like, I like this here. So production and directing has always been my baby since I've graduated. So coming from there, I took some time off, and I worked with a few collegiate collegiate departments within their athletic communications department, where I directed and edited my own sports weekly TV show turned coaches show. So that really catapulted me into my love and passion for producing and directing. Coming to now, like Corey, I'm also obtaining my master's in sports management at the great Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University. And
oh, Lord.
It just has been a wonderful, wonderful experience since I've been there. Like Corey, myself, while Corey was doing a lot of the front of the camera, I was right there being her right man woman, being her production assistant, being her producer when it comes to all of her sidelining and everything that Corey do. I was right behind the camera rooting her on, making sure no flops, no flips. And it's just been amazing, the things that these doors have opened up for both Corey and I. While Corey was basketballing, I was sidelining, so roles kind of switched during the season, and so they pushed me into not so much unfamiliar territory, but something I just haven't really done in a while. And that was really fun, doing some sidelining for both men and women's basketball team before I got the opportunity here through HBCU Game Day. And ever since then, it's just really catapulted and took its own thing, and I'm loving it thus far.
Certainly. I like the way that y'all have been well integrated into the FAMU way, the way that y'all speak about Florida A&M or Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University, as you stated, Dominique. We're going to state, that's right, strike again. You can do that on the show. This is a HBCU show.
No, she can't. She can't do that. Don't go that easy. Come on.
I would say welcome to the SWAC, but it sounds like Mike may have umbrage to that. Before I actually pass it on to him, let me stick with you, Dominique, and tell us a little more about how did Air It Out come about?
How did Air It Out come about? Well, really honestly, shout out to Mr. Wally Pitt. He really birthed the idea for me and Corey. They know that we both have a strong background within broadcast journalism and everything. But the thing was, I wanted the mindset of just letting Corey do her own thing. Corey, you love being in front of the camera. You record it. You do what you got to do. Just give me the film. I'll edit it. I'll make it look nice. I'll make everything go boom and bam. And then we got it. But Wally was basically like, no, you have the chops. You can do it. And Corey was right there putting with me. And Corey and I were great friends. And so putting us in front of a camera was no problem for us. And so it's basically just a regular conversation that we have. The show is basically just us talking about what we see going on in not only the sports culture, but just Black culture in general. So we try to talk about, of course, HBCUs, because that's the platform that we're on, and every day we want to show how great this side of the grass is. But aside from that, we always try to talk about things that are going on aside from just sports. So things that are happening with finances, things that are happening with just like everything that's been going on from Corona to Black Lives Matter movement. We just really try to cover everything because, like I say, our show is aired out. And I know when you have stuff on your chest, you always want to get it off. And so that's definitely what Corey and I do throughout the span of our TV show.
I got a chance to see that first episode. Great job, ladies. Really good bringing that. And I was excited about seeing a different perspective, to be honest with you, in terms of part of this HBCU family, as I like to call it, the sporting HBCU diaspora. But with that framework, let me pass it to Charles and allow him to jump in here with a question.
Sure. Ladies, and I wanted to ask this question now that you've integrated yourself into this Florida A&M broadcast journalism. How is it coming in to a school that has birthed a Pam Oliver, Tiffany Green, who now does play-by-play for ESPN, talking about that environment that you guys have ingratiated yourselves into?
No, definitely.
Let's start with Corey.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the reasons why I ultimately made that decision to go from UF to AMU for my grad year, because I had a contact in Vaughn Wilson who knows the Pam Olivers and the Tiffany Greens, and he actually set up an opportunity. I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to meet with Miss Tiffany Green, and she's coached me up, and she's seen some of my sidelines, and she's been giving me critiques and helping me out. So knowing that this school has produced such reporters like that, people that I've looked up to since I was a young girl, is the reason why I knew I had to be a Rattler, and I had to be a part of that experience and continue that legacy of just amazing women in sports broadcasting. So it's really a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Dominique, did you want to jump in on that?
Basically, I mean, why not? It's always great to see strong Black women dominating in a man field, and that's always been my motto through being in this male-dominated field, and to see women like Corey mentioned, Miss Pam Oliver and Tiffany Green, giving us kudos for what we're doing. It only just pushes you, because it just shows that everyone's watching. And then, like I say, it's just amazing. Like you're humble, you're grateful to one day be in their shoes, for having the young generation looking at you saying, because Corey Staples and Dominique Whitehurst did it, I know I can do it too. So it's really great, and it's an honor.
Absolutely.
I'm Dr. Cavill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're interviewing Corey Staples and Dominique Whitehurst. Air it out. Mike, go ahead with your follow-up question.
Oh, I get to talk now? I appreciate it, Dr. Cavill.
You tried to jump in there and cut me off. I'm going to make you wait.
Corey and Dominique, in case you didn't tell, we've been friends for a very long time. So, congratulations to both of you. I've had a chance to also take a look at your show, and you bring a lot of energy to it. So my question is simply, you started out, you're out of the gates. What's your strategic vision? Where do you want to take this show 2-3 years from now? Obviously that'll change, but what do you envision this show, this platform going 2 or 3 years from now?
Corey, you want to take that first? You want me to?
I mean, I can. I haven't really honestly thought that far in advance. I've just been so grateful for the present, the opportunity that has been birthed from this pandemic and everything that's been going on. So it's been an amazing opportunity. But I would say ideally in 2 to 3 years, I would like for this to get on something like Aspire TV or something, just for us to speak on during football commercial breaks and halftime reports and things like that, just to kind of expand it beyond Zoom, get out in the field and not just be sitting behind a computer and things like that. So I think that definitely would be the vision, just covering sports and HBCU culture, as HBCU Game Day has been doing, but kind of bring that diversity with being 2 women. So definitely that would be my vision.
Basically, Corey said it for both of us, and even having the possibility of incorporating more women within our show, just to give them a platform of saying that, okay, we can do sideline, we can have the play-by-play. It's about endless of what we can do, and it just wants to just highlight everything, because HBC, like you say, we're one big family, and we're just everything, we're just great, and I just want to make sure that we open up a platform for us to show that, and that's definitely what we want to see in the upcoming future.
Thank you for sharing. And when you guys get to that level, because I know you will, just remember one thing, because I know you're based over there on the East Coast, and whenever shows are based near Atlanta, FAM, they tend to forget that there are HBCUs west of the Mississippi. So please, as you start your careers, please remember that.
Yes.
This is one big family.
We'll make sure we write it down. We'll make sure we put it
I like that point, Mike. Yeah, give us some love over here in the Southwest, if you would. Let me follow up a little bit in regards to the gender framework that Mike asked you about. And before I do that, I wanted to add some context. We talked about Wally Pip as well as Vaughn Wilson, who are part of HBCU Game Day. And that's where your Air It Out, the show, is produced out of that HBCU Game Day. So I wanted to give some context. And Wally Pip and Tyler Clark, for that matter, actually aligning this up when I started asking questions that I wanted you all on the show. So I wanted to give them the appropriate shout out in regards to work that they're doing. They're doing great work over there. And you can see that by bringing amazing people to the table. With that, even though that like 40% of athletes are women, an estimated 4% of sports media coverage is devoted to female sport. What do you think about this? Does that in any way why you all decided to push forward with this show? And we'll go with you, Corey, first.
I definitely think that is a reason why we have the show and why we want just kind of to see like young girls to see that it's just not men speaking about sports. It's just not men knowing what they're talking about. We also have a voice, and we also want to be in this field and give our beliefs and our platform and things like that. So I think that's why the show really came about, and really just like I said, blessed for the opportunity to be able to pave the way for HBCU Game Day to hopefully have more females on their show and have more people in their platforms and things like that. So I would say, yeah, that's how it came about and why we're here today speaking with you guys.
Dominique, if you would please share your opinion on that quick.
I've always been the one to say that, like, you never want to be the afterthought. And when you look into women in sports, especially you have your Doris Burks, like I said, your Maria Taylor, and they're dominating their thing, but it's just 9 times out of 10 they expect you to just be the silent partner and just lead the program towards the end. And that's what Corey and I want to show, that we could run it. Like, we don't need not to be biased or to be sexist, but it's just to show that you don't have to be the afterthought when it comes to sports. Like, you can talk about the topics boldly and not be afraid of what you want to say. And that's really, I think that's Corey and I's goal every time we speak. It's like, you know how they say, Kevin Hart says, say it with your chest. Like, we want to make sure like we say it with our chest when we're out there and when we're talking about our topics, because you always have someone coming saying, well, you should have said this and you should have said that, but you have to be a firm believer of what you said. And at first, yeah, it's scary. You have to be timid because you're on this new platform and you're trying to understand what you should say, what you should not say. But after a while, it's just like, yes, opinions have repercussions, but if you don't get your opinion out there, it's always going to be a shoulda, coulda, woulda. So that's definitely Corey and I's goal when we're filming and airing our show.
Certainly, I really like that. In a lot of ways, what you're talking about is not being unapologetic, and I love that about people in general when they like that, particularly when they have something to share. And it sounds like you all have something to share with this Air It Out. As we come to a close, I'd like to give you a chance to, with the floor, if you would, and talk about what can viewers expect with the upcoming episodes of Air It Out.
I think that our name kind of precedes everything that they can expect. Just air it out, like you mentioned, being unapologetic about what we're talking about and giving our beliefs and things that, the viewpoints that people might be timid to talk about otherwise in different major networks or whatever. We want to have that opportunity to kind of just get it off of our chest, and everything in HBCU culture, sports, anything like that. That's what we want to speak about, and that's what we kind of just want to bring to the light. And especially with this kind of this movement where it seems like these top athletes and things like that are going to HBCUs, be able to bring out to the forefront HBCUs more and just kind of show people that this is what's always been popping, and just come on over and come on home and kind of really just show people that HBCUs is the move and has always been the move. So, yeah.
Certainly. With that, Dominique and Corey, it was really a pleasure having you on the show and talking about Air It Out, really sharing why you think it's great to be a Rattler, and certainly look forward to things that you all have coming and moving the show forward. So with that, next time you all have some other things popping off, don't forget about us. We'd love to have you back on the show and sharing us some of your other vision that you have moving forward.
Yes,
thank you, ladies, and have a great one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
With that, as you wrap it up, it looks like we're about ready to bring on our next guest, who happens to be the athletic director at Howard University. And before we get in that conversation and start that interview, any passing thoughts that you have, Mike, in regards to what you can expect with Air It Out? I really thought there was a great interview there and what those ladies bring to the table.
I think they have if you looked at their show and you looked at their model, they have a unique niche. They're talking to all age groups, but they're keeping it fresh. They touch on pop culture. They touch on HBCU sports as it's relevant to the African American community. And I think they have a very good platform. I think their voice has energy. So I expect nothing but the best from them. And you could you could get the energy just from interviewing them here, online or virtually. So I expect true greatness to come from that platform. I joke a lot, but they come from FAMU. There is a tradition of strong female reporters that come from that other institution, that HBC somewhere over there. But in all seriousness, I definitely will support the show, and it was a great interview. So.
Certainly. With that, without further ado, let's bring in Mr. Kerry Davis. Let me give you a little background before we ask him to share a little bit about himself. Howard University's athletic director, undergrad, Dartmouth University, law school, Cornell University, played point guard. Knows a little bit about basketball. It sounds like he must have the handles at Dartmouth while he was there in undergrad. Was a senior vice president of HBCU Sports, negotiated boxing's biggest fight featuring Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, and Oscar De La Hoya. You all remember those days. So he's put in a lot of work and get it done. With that, without further ado, let's bring on Kerry Davis. Excuse me there. With that, Kerry, let the people know I'm doing well.
Good.
People tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, actually, you did a pretty good job with my resume there, but my mother would be proud. But
thank you.
Yeah, as you said, I come from a little bit different background as an athletic director. I had never been an athletic director before I took the position at Howard. I worked for 17 years, as you just said, as a head of programming for HBO Sports, and that entailed, obviously, our franchise sport was boxing. At the time I was there, and we represented, or we televised fights from everyone from Mike Tyson to Oscar De La Hoya to Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. And I was the point person behind all of those signings and all of those deals. My background, as you also said, is I'm an attorney. And prior to joining HBO, I was an attorney in the music and theater business. And so I represented a number of entertainers and executives in the music world. In addition to that, I served as the executive producer for a theatrical show called Mama, I Want to Sing, which ran for a long time. I was the executive producer for that show. And then we did some shows on Broadway. Joe Turner's Come and Gone, from August Wilson, to just name a couple. So I've been around the block a little bit in the entertainment space. My first love has always been sports. And so as HBO began to dial back its sports program, I looked for my next step, the next chapter in my life. And I had a lot of opportunities to stay in the boxing world, but I got a call from one of my mentors, who was a Howard, a proud Howard alum, right? And he asked me what as I was doing my garden leave, hanging out on the beach while HBO was still paying me. I call it my beach leave. All right. He asked me what I was going to do next, and I talked about other networks, and he said, "No, that's not what you're going to do." And I said, "What am I going to do, sir?" He said, "You're going to be the athletic director at Howard University."
Wow.
I was like, okay. That came out of nowhere. Didn't see that coming. But he was on the board of trustees at the university, and he was a prominent lawyer himself. And so he just said, "Take the meeting with Dr. Frederick." He just said to who's the president of the university, he said, "I want you to take the meeting." Right. I think you'll find a kindred spirit and someone who sees the world as you do, which is that everything is possible. And so I took the meeting, and and I was so impressed with his vision. And I remember our first phone call lasted about 2 hours. And I knew I was in with a different soul, because the call started at 11 o'clock at night. And that was we stayed on the phone for 2 hours, and he left me with one lasting thought. He said, "I'm looking for Howard's athletics to do for Howard what Georgetown's basketball program or Duke's basketball program did for those universities. That's what I'm looking for Howard." Right. And I said, "Okay, well, if that's your theory, if that's what you want to do, then I'm on board." Right. who knows whether or not we can do it, but with that as a goal, right, I know that we can always keep striving. So that's my story. That's how I got it.
Man, that's a great story. That's the interview right there. That wrapped it all up.
That's a wrap.
that is wonderful the way you brought that. And hopefully before the interview is over, maybe you might consider telling us who that board member, that mentor was, because it sounds like he's extremely proud and powerful. We'd love to know that. We could understand why that may be personal. With that, let Charles jump right in here, and then I'll come back and follow up with some questions, because I can see the gleam in his eyes in regards to telling those stories that he wants to jump in here, and I don't want to keep him waiting.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think the obvious question for me is, with this diverse background, theater, HBO, boxing, how do you go about bringing all that into Howard Athletics? I'm just really curious in terms of, I guess, the skills that you've acquired along the way. How does it fit into the box of being an athletic director now?
Well, I think one of the things, and that's a great question. When I thought the job was one thing, and when I got here, it was another. It's one of those. So I thought that, I think I took for granted some of the issues with regard to student athletes, and here's what I mean by that. And when you sit from afar and you sit in the corporate world and you look at big time college athletics, and that's what we did. I did a number of documentaries when I was at HBO on big time college athletics. I did a documentary on UNLV in the Running Rebels. I did a docu on the perfect game when Villanova beat Georgetown. So I did a documentary on the integration of college football. Right, so we still love doing those kinds of stories when I was at HBO. So I had this depiction of it from the setting of 1,000 yards, actually 35,000 feet. That's how I looked at it. But when you get here, right, the one thing that hit me was the personal relationships you have with the students, right? So instead of looking at it from 35,000 feet, I had to look at it from ground level, right? Here's a student who's coming in, who wants guidance, right? You're probably coming into their lives at the most important part of their lives in terms of their development and growth into a young woman or young man, right? And so how will you play a part in that, right? So it wasn't just coming in, let me see how many deals I can make with Under Armour or Nike or a television distributor, because that's what I was thinking I was coming to do. And instead, right, I began to enjoy, the most enjoyable part of the job became the interaction with the young student athletes, right, who were looking to learn, who were looking to excel at a sport, who were asking questions. That became, for me, the skill set. And so I always talk about the job that prepared me most for this was a parent of 4 children.
Oh, wow.
That's the job that prepared me the most for the job I'm in now.
That'll do it.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. Wonderful insight there. Mike, with that, go ahead and follow up with a question, Mike.
Yeah, just sitting in awe and kind of listening to your background, as you grabbed your reins around this program and around this position, what have been some of your challenges and what is your goal? What are your goals for this program? At least in the next couple of years to grow it, to keep the momentum going. How do you see that coming to fruition?
Oh, there are a couple of things, and now going back to Charles's question, there are a couple of things that I took from HBO that I wanted to apply to Howard. And one of the things that HBO we used to talk about was we have to create buzz, right? If I'm going to make you pay for television, right? If I'm going to tell you that, then this was when how HBO was created. Now we're all used to paying for television, but when HBO was created, right, no one was used to paying for television, right? Television was, broadcast TV was free, right? So that's why we used to have the slogan: it's not it's not TV, it's HBO, right? So how do you get people's attention? Well, we used to say we have to create shows that cause buzz, that will be water cooler conversation, right? So that's one of the things that I said, that's one of the things we have to do better at Howard. And we have to get more people's attention to tell our story. We can tell our story when we get their attention, right? So, for example, great example, the win over UNLV, right? That was a great opportunity for us because all of a sudden the sports world noticed, wow, what a big victory, the biggest point spread victory. Okay, fine. But what ends up happening was in the course of doing interviews around it, or in the course of, Kaylin doing interviews around it, we got to tell the story of Howard, right, in those interviews, right? And many people were introduced to Howard for the first time. I remember when I was at the game in UNLV, at the actual game, and it was close down the stretch, and we were interacting. Anthony Anderson actually was in our booth with us, and so he was interacting with the fans that were around us, and they had no idea where Howard was. They had no idea, where is Howard again? What is it? And so we got a chance to tell our story, if you will, using that platform. So that was one of the things I wanted to bring with us. Right, I wanted to be able to bring the noise, if you will, as the young people used to say. Right, I'm probably old.
I won't talk about Mike and Charles, but I certainly can relate. I do that in my class all the time. And with the young folks, they be like, "We don't say that no more."
We don't say that.
And they say no more, and I'm like, "Any more? Right. Whatever." Whatever.
And the second thing, I just want to hit one other point.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I was disappointed in was some of the academic performances of some of our teams when I got there. And so we used to have a phrase that we started. I started the first session I had with my team is, we have to be who we say we are. Right? We have to be who we say we are. If we're going to be the preeminent HBCU in terms of academics in this country, or certainly in the conversation of the top 2 or 3, whatever it is, then we have to be that. Our athletes have to reflect that, right? And so, we have to have a high graduation rate. We have to do well in terms of our APR and all of those things. So we have to do that. And so those were the 2 things that I wanted our staff to focus on. Strengthening our academics, right, and creating opportunities for us to get people's attention.
Certainly, and that resonates with me as well. With that, talking a little bit about the buzz part of it. One of the buzz that came out last year was Howard has entered a partnership with Golden State Warriors Stephon Curry to fund the golf program for 6 years. How did that sponsorship come about?
That was one of those organic, fortuitous things. Steph was doing premiering a documentary on campus, and again, that goes back to where Howard is and the structure of who Howard is. I mean, it's such a prominent place in the social and cultural part of the African American community, that you get opportunities like that. So when Steph was doing this documentary, he said, I want to do a screening at Howard. After the doc was over, there was a question and answer period, and one of the young students, actually wasn't a student athlete, walked up to him and said, "Hey, Steph, let's play a round of golf tomorrow before you leave DC." And Steph was like, "Oh, no, I can't do it, man." But Steph loved to talk golf, so he got in a conversation with this young man. He said, "Hey, are you on the golf team here at Howard?" And he said, "No, we don't have a golf team." And so he said, "I play club golf." And they engaged, and I guess Steph went home and thought about it. And so Dr. Frederick got a call from Steph's manager and said, "We want to talk about the golf program at Howard." So Dr. Frederick put the manager on to me, and at first they were talking about funding a club team, right? And as we started, and again, this is one of those situations, as we started talking to his people about who Howard was and where we stood in black culture and black society, right? It was like a light bulb went off, and they were like, you know what? Howard should have a golf program, period. Right? I'm going to do it. And so that was literally, I almost dropped the phone. I was like, what? Yeah. So, and I tell you, Steph is an incredible humanitarian, and everything we asked for in terms of getting the program started. From apparel, he used his influence with Under Armour to make an apparel deal. So we'll be sponsored. He's coming up with his own apparel line called SC30. So we will be sponsored by them, and wear his apparel, and it's all of these. I can't wear it. It's all of these tight shirts.
Mr. Kerry Davis, you can't just let this slide in. That's breaking news, right? In a lot of ways, talking about that apparel line and the fact that Howard University athletic program, specifically golf, will have that apparel. That's beautiful. That all came together organically in a lot of ways, as you talked about. But the fact that you were able to measurably push that forward. As we're coming up on the time here, I want to make sure that we get this in here, because I know your basketball profile will probably make this really interesting. And the buzz that you talked about is all over this. And Mike and Charles would beat me up if I didn't get this on the table and ask this question. Blue chip recruit, market maker, posted via Twitter that he will make his commitment to Howard University on July 9th, which coincides with the South Sudan Independence Day. What do you think he wants the decision to signify for his home country and Howard University? Obviously, I know there are some NCAA guidelines about that, and so however you can get into that conversation, if you would, please share with us your thoughts on it.
Well, as you probably know, I can't talk about a specific student athlete, but here's what I can say. I believe that the impact of high-level recruits, high-level basketball players, high-level football players, high-level athletes coming to HBC, we are right now in a moment in time where young people are taking control of their branding, their messaging, and we're seeing this across all of our sports. Our volleyball team is in dialogue with top 50 players. Our soccer team is in dialogue with players who played for USA Soccer, right? This is a dialogue that is happening across all different sports, and I'm sure it's not just happening at Howard. I'm sure it's happening at other places. I saw somebody said Bronny James was likely to sign with North Carolina Central, right? But so
that's right.
We're in a moment, and it's terrific that we can all potentially take advantage of this. I read an article about 3 years ago that Jimmy King wrote. If you guys haven't read it, you guys should Google it. Right, but he talked about what would have happened if the Fab Five would have gone to Howard, Michigan, right? And to me, again, that opened. I sent that article to everybody who would, because I wanted people to know that's the vision that Dr. Frederick had 5 years ago. That's what he was talking about when he said, we can be Georgetown, we can be Duke, because we have the type of brand name and academic profile that we should be able to attract these type of athletes. So we're excited about the future. We're excited about the possibilities, and we're going to try to continue to not just make noise, but also try to make noise by going to the to NCAA tournament. That's the way to make the most noise. Right, so.
Certainly, we're on top of the hour and about to close out, but I wanted to get one in. But this has been a fascinating interview, and I can tell by Mike and Charles that if your time would allow, we'd love to find a way to bring you back.
We would love to get you back.
Yeah, I got a few more, but I
got a couple more.
and we'll look at maybe expanding this to a special type edition interview over the summer, where we could give you a more time to really expound on your vision. But with that, other big news just came out yesterday from Howard University in regards to the associate membership. So if you'd allow me to get this in, and we'll try to make sure, give you some time to also give your final thoughts in terms of what all this means and anything that you want to say to Howard University alumni out there, is the fact that Bison will begin NNC competition. And Mike brought this up in terms of the new component in 2021 season, the men's and women's swimming. In 2021-22, women's soccer, women's lacrosse, and women's golf will join the conference as well. Brother brought this about, this change, if you would, and also for people who are not familiar with association membership or associate membership, as they like to say. Can you explain that a little bit all together?
So Howard currently sponsors 21 sports. 15 of those sports compete in the MEAC conference, the Mid-East Athletic Conference. I'm sure it's well known to your viewers, to viewers and listeners. The other 6 had to find homes in various other conferences. All right, so our women's soccer team was in the SWAC. Our men's soccer team was in the Sun Belt. Lacrosse team was in the ASUN. Right, the swimming team was in the CC. I was getting completely, when I would see all these invoices and dues, I'm like, wait a minute, we're paying dues and invoices for conferences all over the country, right? And geographically, the footprints of all of those conferences weren't conducive to Howard. So our students were spending way too much time traveling. Way too much time missing classes. Our soccer team played in the SWAC. You guys are very familiar. You know where those schools are. So we were playing. Our team was traveling to Mississippi and Alabama and Texas, right? And then the SWAC's contract stated that we had to play our home games in Birmingham. So for the entire conference season, our soccer team was playing in the South, right? So forgetting about the wear and tear on them physically, right? But missed class time and the expense of it was just way too much. So about a year and a half ago, I sought out a couple of commissioners in Northeast conferences, and I said, would you be interested in taking all 6 of our programs? So at the time it was 5 because we didn't have women's golf. A couple of conferences said, yes, we'll have that conversation. The NEC ended up being the best fit, if you will, in terms of its geographic footprint, but also too because of they have a very forward-thinking digital and media strategy. Their schools are housed in big media markets. That was important to me. And so it was a good fit from that standpoint.
Certainly, with that, we're right on top of that. But I did want to give you a minute or so to talk to Howard University, those alumni that are out there, and what are you doing for the program and what plans you have forward. I know there's not a lot of time to do that, but if you could encapsulate some thoughts, at least to them, we'd love to give you that moment to talk about Howard Bison, as we go Bison. Well,
this is an important time. As we're in this global pandemic, it is this time period is allowing us to really rethink strategies and goals, etc. And our goal is to not only excel on the field, but we're really putting a lot of efforts into our academic strategies. And so we're, from a facilities standpoint, from an academic standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, we're really looking to compete and grow our athletic department. And we have terrific support from our alumni. Not only do they give up their time, but they also give up their money. And we're excited about where the future is going. And so we think that we'll be, 2020, once we get to the other side of this pandemic, I really think that Howard fans will have a lot to be proud of when they see what we're doing on the field and off. And by the way, our football team's going to be pretty good in Larry Scott's first year. I'm just calling that out now.
All right.
I'm calling that out right now. Right, I think we picked like the last or next to last in the preseason survey of coaches. I'm telling you that we got a young quarterback. He can't play. We lost Kalen Newton. We lost Ezard. Okay. I'm just letting everybody know. Remember this interview. Our football team's going to be pretty good.
Shots fired. I like that.
Yeah, I like that, Mr. Carey. I like that. A little bit of that HBCU culture in there. A little bit about this smack talk. We like that.
Well, listen, I may have gone to Dartmouth and Cornell, but I'm from the Bronx.
I knew it was somewhere. I want to say thank you for your time, Carey Davis. And we certainly, like we said, we'd love to have you back. Great interview, great information that you're sharing with Howard University. And we want you to know that you have a space with us anytime that you want to get information out to the HBCU fans out there. So thank you.
No, well, thank you for having me, guys. And I look forward to coming back again and telling you guys some boxing stories.
I'm looking forward to that.
Would love to hear that.
Certainly. So let me say this as we sign off on the KSWH 1230 end of our live air. Thanks for THD Agency for sponsoring today's episode. It's a company that sponsors sports entertainment and sports consulting work as we close out on our terrestrial KSWH 1230 AM radio side. For the rest of those that are following us on Zoom and our Facebook Live feed, please stick on because we're going to close out and bring on Rob Calloway. Again, thank you for your time, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab. Yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay. Tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. Bill, Mike and Charles, and 19 times.
So, as you know, those that follow us on Facebook Live, this is our bonus part as we bring in and consider our dialogue with Rob Calloway of HBCU Sports Report. He has a little breaking news. It looks like he's taking advantage of this time right now to get in a little exercise. So you all see the man, make sure he stays in shape, takes care of himself, especially as it's a good time to do that right now. Seriously, with COVID-19, everybody, follow, pay attention, and take care of yourself. So this is a little bonus hour. So, Rob, before we get in some dialogue about the show today or hot topics that you talk about this week, the transition period that you're doing with HBCU Sports Report.
Well, got him on mute.
There we go. There we go. Can y'all hear me good now? We good?
We good.
Oh, yeah. All right. So basically, man, I had to take a break away because, I've been going so hard. Number one, I needed a break. But number two, I'm fine tuning, man. You can't fine tune the show while you in the midst of trying to do interviews and all that kind of stuff. So Saturday, I'll be back Saturday. It's just 5 days, man. I can't stay away too long. I ain't like some of these folks, but I can't stay away too long because especially the way everything going in the landscape now, but you stay away too long, hey man, you got a whole lot to talk about and it's dated by the time you get ready to talk about it. So
yeah.
But I had to make sure that if nothing else, that I checked in with y'all. I checked in with y'all today, and there's a lot of talent out here at the track today. But
You're talking about sprinters, right? You're talking about sprinters.
Well, they ain't really sprinting. They strutting. They ain't really sprinting. Man, I was the only one out there sprinting. They out there strutting. But, you know, God bless these spandex tights, Lord. Jesus Christ. I don't know what we was doing before that. Boy, I tell you what. I see all kind of, boy, it's a Mississippi Valley kind of talent out here, boy. Like, not football. And I ain't talking about football either.
Delta fish.
Absolutely. What's going on, fellas? That's it for me, man.
No, that's good. Well, you talking about the SWAC and everything with moves. Moving over to the SIAC, a lot of talk out there. We heard in school today. Council. Just last week, we heard about Langston University, Wiley College. What are your thoughts in regards to several of these HBCU programs, specifically counseling their athletic program and going online in a lot of ways for academics?
Well, you know, the thing about it is that, I mean, you gotta safeguard the kids. You know, I had Coach Fobbs on, Roger Fobbs on the show Saturday, and you know, we were talking about you know, COVID and you know how it's important to protect the kids, and sometimes you have to make the necessary call, even though it might be the tough call. You got to make the necessary call in order to be able to protect these kids, because the one thing about it is kids don't know how to social distance. I mean, especially college students. I mean, I wish somebody would have told me at Bama State I need to social distance myself 6 feet from some chick. Like, what? I only went to school to study abroad. I mean, like, man, and I wasn't going out the country. So it's like, shoot, I couldn't even imagine actually having a social distance. But you know, the private institutions, they kind of have the benefit of being able to make those tough decisions. Because they are private, and so they kind of govern themselves, you know, under whatever bylaws they have. But the state institutions, however, you know, they plugging along like it's gonna happen. But the more and more that we see these things, I mean, look, we see in the NBA, right? We see all these players test positive in the NBA. WNBA has some players test positive. MLB, I mean, right here in Atlanta, we had 5 players test positive for COVID. Yet we want to have the MEAC SWAC Challenge in Atlanta, and we just reached 100,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the state of Georgia. So, you know, when you start seeing that kind of stuff, at some point, somebody somewhere has to make the call and be like, you know what, yeah, online might be the way to go. I mean, because think about it, even in the public school system, you know, the parents have the option of either sending the kids to school or the digital learning. And so the majority of them, I'm sure, are going to choose the digital learning, even though, you know, it's going to be a little tough for the kids. But at some point, you just got to do the right thing, man. And I know we all want football. We all want sports, because it's been so long since we actually had some real sports. I mean, come on, man. Y'all were watching NASCAR. Don't know black folks watch NASCAR. Every black person I know was watching NASCAR. Couple weeks ago to my man, look how they pushing Bubba's car. I'm looking all over Twitter like, what y'all talking about? Then I realized they talking about NASCAR. I'm like, come on now. Like, you know, we do not talk NASCAR. I mean, I know some folks that's into it, but not like that. But we so desperate. We so desperate for sports that, you know, I mean, it just is what it is. But before we go, man, how about this commitment Thursday night? You know, by the Maker kid. That was huge. That was huge.
That's big.
You know, I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I don't know Dr. Cavill, because you know, Dr. Cavill have all these side conversations. Everybody texts Dr. Cavill. so you know, I text Dr. Cavill like just randomly throughout the week. I just like, if I'm feeling some kind of way about something, or if I just need to know how I need to feel about something, right? I'll be like, yeah, I always need some perspective, because, you know, me, I'm just raw. I'm just like a dumb radio dude. You know what I'm saying? I don't like, when it comes to certain things, a lot of times it's my heart. I just say it, whether you know, whether it feel good to y'all or not, it felt good to me. So you know, I really didn't know how to feel, man, because Friday morning when I woke up, and saw the news, it was like the next thing I saw was like everybody was kind of pissed off because the kid was like he was going to discuss his decision with ESPN, and it was like all of our colleagues were all pissed off. They like, what? ESPN? What? What? I mean, it was everybody, and I ain't talking. You're right. I'm not talking about anybody. I'm just saying, but it was everybody and their mama. They were just mad. I mean, everybody was trying to justify themselves on social media. The coach at Howard. Anybody that would listen. And I'm like, come on, y'all. Y'all got to be better than this. Like, for real, the boy already made the decision. Right? He made the decision to come. Like, for real, none of us are going to be able to give him the damn platform that he needs to be able to talk about why he chose Howard. Like, let him go to ESPN first, and then we'll talk to him because y'all still going to want to talk to him. You know, y'all, you know, and
you're gonna bring it from a different perspective. That is absolutely right.
Right. But you got to let him. You got to let him talk. You got to let him talk to ESPN because that's what sets everything else up on the national. Puts everything else on the national level is when you let him do that, and then you kind of, you know, because trust me, like, come on, man. I mean, like, look, I'm just be very honest with y'all. Like, I know that when it comes to covering HBCU sports, I know that you know us, you know, our colleagues, so to speak, this world, this conglomerate we got, right? I know that we do a better job than ESPN. We just do not have the platform, and so because we don't have the platform, you got to let the boy go ahead and set the table. Because the thing about it is, ESPN is 24 hours a day. People look at ESPN, you know, several times a day, whenever. And so do these young kids. So if the messages go get out to Mikey Williams, who already clearly got the message, but you know, if the messages go get out to all these other young kids, they don't know where we are. You know what I'm saying? They don't know where we are. So it's like you have, when I say us, I mean the HBCU media. They know ESPN. They not scanning through the TV trying to find us. You know what I'm saying? Or scanning through the radio.
Couldn't have said it any better. I think you're right on the money. I think you know, in all seriousness, I guess some of my Texans are rubbing off. You go in and I'm like, dude, he out here preaching. Let me let Charles jump in there, and I want you to follow back up before you have to get out of here on this. Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of the Howard signing, or what looks to be a potential signing on Saturday, in regards to the framework that Rob just talked about? What are your thoughts, and how big is that in your opinion?
It's huge. I'm really excited about it. I'm cautiously optimistic, you know, in terms of what it means down the road. But I think from my perspective, you know, over here at Texas Southern, we've been seeing a lot of these 3-star, 4-star guys.
Mike Davis, they
filter back. They filter back to HBCU. So it's good for the paradigm to change, for it to happen on the front end. I talked to a young man, Brian Adams, the other day, who was kind of at the forefront of doing this at Alcorn back in 1996. He was one of the top 50 players in the country, and he ended up signing with Alcorn. So to see that paradigm shift to where you start getting these real top-notch players on the front end, I think is huge.
Yeah, absolutely, without question.
Mike, go ahead and your thoughts on it. Give me a little more than that, and then we're going to let Rob close it out the normal time he can do as we roll into his show, but not this week. But we're prepping everybody for the following week as well.
Oh, yeah, I think it's huge. Number one, just as a side note, Howard tends to keep coming up. Kayla Newton, Steph Curry with the golf thing, and now this. You got to give the guy. Howard's doing something, or the stars just aligning right with Howard. But as far as this decision, I think it's big from the perspective as for every Mackie Williams there's probably that spoke up and we know about, there's probably going to be another 5, 6, 7 kids that we don't know about that are looking at this kid's decision. And if he broadcast it on ESPN, just imagine the message that is going to reverberate. My hope is that it's good at Hope on the front end, but is it going to be sustainable recognition for the HBCUs finally getting some more athletes on the front end? But I think this is huge. And I say again, for every Mikey Williams, there's probably about 5 or 6 other kids. Hey, they probably texting, they probably IGing with Mikey. Hey, let me take a look. Let me take a look at a few of these HBCUs. So there you go. I think it's big.
That's right, Mike. I like the way you put that in terms of how the multiply effect. Rob, do your thing and tell us give us some good words as we close out and get ready for your big crowd on Saturday. Come on, man. Give it to us, man.
Y'all want the benediction? Oh boy! Look, seriously. This is it. I mean, this right here kind of touched me Saturday, and I'm gonna just share it with y'all. I don't know if y'all. I know Dr. Kabir listened. I don't know if y'all had a chance to listen, but for those of you that didn't listen, make sure you go back to Spreaker, type in HBCU report, and the show from Saturday is called The Decision 2020. But as we've all just been jumping through hoops and celebrating and I mean fireworks, whatever, all SWAC fans, we've been celebrating however you celebrate, barbecuing, like I say, fireworks, shooting your guns, whatever it is that you do, we all been celebrating the last 30 days, right? Because we had FAMU come in, then we had Bethune-Cookman come in, and we like, oh yeah, the SWAC, we are super conference. We just need 2 more teams, right? We all been celebrating. Man, let me tell y'all something. Y'all got to go back and listen to this interview with Coach Favre and what Coach Favre said when I asked him. Because I was like, I thought he was gonna be kind of excited when we to talk about it. And he goes, well, the one thing that I will say is it's cool. It allows me to be able to go to Florida and recruit, so that's good for me. Look, now listen. Then he says, but I'm not cool with, I'm cool with what our conference is doing, but I'm not cool with it being at the expense of our partner, the MEAC, right? He said, because, and these are his own words. Now we already been saying, I don't know what y'all say on y'all show, but he said the MEAC is destroyed at the current moment. It is destroyed. And he just does not want to see the partner destroyed and then the ability for a SWAC school to be able to go to a bowl game go away, because that is a major selling point for these SWAC schools and these MEAC schools, as well as that you get to go to a bowl game, which in essence, as he put it, and I hadn't even really thought about it, it really, while we're on the FCS level technically, categorically, the fact that we have a bowl game really puts us on the FBS level, so to speak. And so he was just saying that while it's great, we can't keep doing this and killing the other conference, because in a minute we ain't gonna have nobody to play. It won't be a bowl game. It won't be that $1 million won't go to the school. Like all of that to dry up. And it like I said, it really hit me that I had to twist it another way. I was like, well, how about historically, FAMU versus Grambling, the two biggest brands of HBCUs? And he goes, oh yeah, well that is true. But as far as the MEAC suffering, he's not cool with it. And like I said, and he a SWAC dude through and through. But us, everybody else is like, yeah, man, yeah. Yeah, death to the MEAC, and we not even realizing we not even realizing death to the MEAC means death to a whole lot a whole lot of opportunities. And he also put it out there, and I know y'all got to go, but he also put it out there, and Dr. Kabir texted me about this, one of those side texts. He also said that that what the Celebration Bowl should do is make it all inclusive. And I've been saying this on my show for years, but they need to make everything all inclusive. So you need to have like a real battle of the bands, the crown, like the battle of the bands. So you have a Celebration Bowl, battle of the bands. And really and truly, you do that, you can get rid of the Honda battle of the bands. You know what I'm saying? Because see, the Honda sells out every year. I've been telling Charles Grant this for years. The Honda sells out every single year, and it ain't one of them capacity type deals. They sell every seat from the top to the bottom of the stadium. And I've been trying to tell Charles, you got to incorporate the bands if you want those stands to be filled up, either in the MEAC SWAC Challenge or in the Celebration Bowl. So the way Coach Favre, framed it was that, it needed to be all inclusive, cheer competition, band competition, not just football, and then it is a real celebration. So, that's just something to think about, man. You did it the way you do it, and everybody check out this show coming up this Saturday, and his usual shows that come on Tuesday and Thursday. But go back and listen to that one on Saturday. It was special. He really brought it in such a way. He just
tickled you with a little bit of it, if you would. But check it out in a lot of ways.
Drop
and that'll do it
nuggets.
for this. There are little nuggets there. That is Rob Calloway of the HBCU Report. Again, that's Rob Calloway of the HBCU Report. You can catch it again every Tuesday and Thursday. On Tuesdays, right after this show, at 7:15 Central Time, 8:15 Eastern Time. And then on the regular time from 6 to 7 on Thursdays. Again, that's 6 to 7 Central Time, 7 to 8 Eastern Time. And then on Saturday morning, he gets up early and gets it in as it's 8 o'clock Central Time. Got me setting my alarm to get up and listen to the show.
Everybody better. They better.
And so I am Kenyatta Coville, a.k.a. the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports. And again, Rob gave me that. And so as we continue to fine-tune this, we have been teasing Mike and Charles. And I do have that in the hopper, the little mix there. But they keep teasing me, so I'm going to make them wait a little longer before they
See, that's what I'm talking about right there. See, that's how friendships end. That's how friendships end. That's how friendships end. He been telling us, I got something for you. Rob got something for you. Then when he get here, he go, you got to wait. What kind of
You got to wait.
You got to wait.
Good things come to those that wait. That's what they say. Good things come to those that wait.
As long as you're not the one waiting.
We sure hope so.
You're good. You smiling. You gotta wait. So
I am Dr. Kenyatta Coville, the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As we come to a close, we hope you enjoyed our lecture today as we brought in 2 great interviews. Go back and check out the show and check it out. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Coville Inside the HBCU Sports radio show with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday. From 6 to 7 right here on KSOH 1230 AM, Houston, Texas. Again, with Rob Calloway as he closes it up and gives it to him. Check out his show and follow us because we're going to make sure we slide him in with our show with us. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Coville, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. DrKenyattaCavil. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon.
Course lecture dismissed.
No doubt about it. See y'all for the next lecture.
If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, you have.
Hey, Charles, send me the link for that.